Hey everyone, Hobie-Wan Kenobi here. Today I'll be field testing the new Daiwa Silver Creek Glass Progressive 5'1" light powered rod. I'll be putting in a variety of situations, also casting a whole bunch of different lures to make sure that this rod is going to be for you. So if you want to see that, keep watching. Also comment down below what else you want to see. So I got this from Digitaka a few days ago. I did just an overall impressions video, kind of going over the taper and some other facts about the rod. I'll put that link down below. So this is going to be field testing. That's pretty nice using that egg nut, I can tell you that. And it pops right off. And the reel I'm using on here, this is a Daiwa Silver Creek, of course. I was kind of going back and forth between using the Conquest or this reel. And the lure I'm using on here, this is a Duo Spearhead Ryuki 50S. It's 4.5 grams, 50 millimeter lure. It's pretty typical. This is the lure I always start off with my BFS casting test, just to give a good baseline. It's a lure that a lot of people have used, so it's pretty distinguishable to be able to get a good frame of reference. It feels almost like a carbon rod, how it kind of flicks your lure out there. Yeah, so this rod is rated, this rod's rated 2 to 10 grams. So this is in the middle. It's actually on the lower side, but it casts really nice. It feels like I'm almost near the upper range of the rod as far as performance. It doesn't feel like the rod's overloaded by any means with this lure. And it feels nice. I mean, granted, I'm using braided line, but I can feel the flashing of that lure pretty distinguishable. I can feel when I have algae on there or any sort of hang-ups, or when I'm making contact with gravel, with sand, or with bigger rocks. Yeah, I mean, I'm able to do this with quite a bit of accuracy. It has almost like the accuracy of a carbon rod because it's more responsive. And hopefully when I hook up with a fish, it's going to have that cushion that glass has. Yeah, there's instant feedback. It's that ultralight glass rod that I built, that I was comparing in the first video. Definitely, this rod is more responsive. It is one power class up too, so that can have something to do with it. But I think that 33% carbon in this rod is making a difference for casting. Oh, I don't want to swipe. See it? There we go. Well, that rod still has a nice taper to it. I mean, this isn't a big fish. Is that a little brown trout? Yeah. Oh, that's a nice looking one. It's not a bad fish. That's a little bit bigger than I originally thought. Those single hooks with the silicone net. A close up of the fish. Oh, that's a pretty good indicator. Now I'm using braided line just because most people would want to use braided line with a glass rod. But just from that fight, I think I wouldn't mind using monofilament with this. I wasn't a huge trout by any means, but it was big enough to put a bend in this rod. And it was actually fun seeing that trout came up and swiped about 3-4 times. Right up off this little current up here. So that was a good test. I was worried that this rod would have too much power, which I got this rod to complement some of my other BFS rods, not to really replace them. So it's good that it does have more power than a lot of my other BFS trout rods, but it was still able to land a little bit smaller trout like that. So now I'm switching over to a floating minnow. This is the Trout Tune by Jackson. So they have like a heavyweight version, which is 6 grams. And then this is the floating version, which is 3 grams. And then they have a normal version, which is 3.5 grams. So you can cover a bunch of different. Ooh, that has some nice action. Ooh, that's That's light. That's some good action. Okay. I'll turn my brakes up to 5 for this. Oh. I'll turn my brakes back down. The cast way too easy. That's some nice action. And the thing with floating lures is that when you stop twitching them, so like they twitch really erratic because they don't have that weight to keep moving in a straight line. Same thing with like hitting off rocks. If you're hitting off rocks on the bottom with a floating lure, you're gonna have more wild deflections. And see how there's a pretty good bug hatch right now too, that they should be looking up, feeding up at the top. So if you can't tell, there's a pretty wild mosquito hatch. You'll probably be able to see it all over in this video. I know I can feel it all over the place. Ooh, slightly wild. Yeah, I'd say this 3 grams isn't ideal on this rod. It's definitely doable, but it's not ideal. All right, so now I'm going to test the sensitivity and just casting jigs is a little bit different. So I have a small jig here. This is a 1.8 gram tungsten jig head by Eurotackle, and that's a small craw in there. It's called a Meta Craw. It's also made by Eurotackle. All right, I like to use these rigs for brook trout just because they catch a lot of fish, and it's also a good way to slow down quite a bit. All right, and that tungsten will keep the bait in the on the bottom a lot easier than it would if it was lead, and then the appendages flap around to attract fish. Oh wow, that cast pretty good. I might have to turn my brakes up slightly. This is gonna be right around that 2 gram lower weight rating with the rod, and it does feel pretty good. And these aren't like super heavy casts that I'm doing or anything. Yeah, it just bounces along the bottom, or swim them depending on how deep it is. I mean, coming across the bottom, there's very easy to tell that I'm hitting rocks. Very, very easy. It's not like that dull glass feeling. I mean, I got hung up in a rock. I was trying to drag to be able to feel it. I have so many bug bites already. I will conclude the jig part. The rod's sensitive enough to be able to fish jigs, at least with braid, and it has a good enough backbone that you can still set the hook pretty well. So I wouldn't be too concerned using this for jigs in a pinch if you're just looking to bring one rod with you. But just for straight up jig fishing, I'd probably use a carbon rod for that. Oh, got one there. He's going this, almost like a, ooh, acrobatic one. Is that another brown trout? Yeah, ooh. Pulled a trick on me. There we go. Look at that. The classic creep aim coming through. There we got it. That has yeah, I've kind of fished on a creep aim in a while. It's a JDM minnow. It's 46 millimeters long. It's 4 grams. It's one of the few JDM minnows that come with stock hooks, and they're actually pretty decent stock hooks too. Ooh. Yeah, Bait Finesse Empire started carrying these last year, and I got a few of them. I mean, there's a couple of them I broke just from casting to bridge pilings and whatever else, just being reckless with them kind of. But they do perform, but the paint kind of comes off them a little earlier than other lures. I'm going to be doing a full review comparing like 4 or 5 different trout minnows just to kind of see some of the differences, pros and cons, and to see what kind of trout lures that would best suit for your type of fishing. So I'm going to be testing this rod with monofilament. I'll probably put a different reel on here just to test it out and just keep things fresh. But I do want to use this with monofilament to see how responsive the rod is, and also that'll give me a little bit less power of sorts fishing for if I hook in a smaller brook trout or brown trout like I have been. It'll give me a little bit more fight with the rod instead of overpowering those fish. So if you want to see that, that'll be happening in some future videos. I'm not going to make a deliberate video for that. I'll just be featuring it in just some future trout videos. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see that. And also comment down below what else you want to see with this rod.